Hey friends, welcome to the Entrusted to Lead podcast. I'm your host, Danita Cummins, and welcome to season 2. It's crazy that we said that. I know, it's been such an amazing journey, and I wanted to first just give a shout out to thank everybody who's listened to the podcast and for all the amazing guests who come on the show, and to our awesome producers at Wildfire Creative Co. It has been an amazing adventure, and I'm really excited about what we're going to do in 2024. All right. So today we're going to jump right in because it's a new year and we got a lot of work to do. And that's kind of how we roll. We're going to talk about intention and stewardship today and hopefully give you some keys to help you reset and focus and not get overwhelmed at the New Year's resolution and all the stuff that's happening, but to give you some tools and things to consider to help you really live intentionally this year so that you can be the best version of you. Okay? So grab your cup of coffee or your favorite beverage of choice and let's get started. Doing things alone is entirely overrated. We all need a community to thrive. And that's why I'm part of an online community of writers and speakers, podcasters, and entrepreneurs called Creatives. And I love it. In the years since I joined this community, I've launched new ideas and I finally executed the dreams that sat on the shelf for years. Seriously. And I was able to do this because of the outstanding group of mentors, exceptional training, and encouraging mastermind groups with my new friends who did and continue to give me invaluable feedback. Oh, and not to mention all the fun, because we have had lots and lots of fun. Have you ever said, I want to write a book? Or do you want to use your voice for the exciting world of podcasting? If so, Called Creatives is your best resource for up-to-the-minute industry training, expert advice, live coaching, and peer support like no other. Best-selling authors and speakers Allie Worthington and Lisa Whittle lead this community with a no-competition mission, and it shows. So join my friends and I in the Called Creative community. Head to my show notes, danitacummins.com/podcast, and click the link to get all the details to join. I promise you won't regret it. I look forward to seeing you in the community and watching you grow. Well, I spent some time over the holidays taking a break, as many of us do, and I spent a few weeks with my family resetting and reflecting on the year that we've had. For some of you, if you have listened to the podcast this year, you know that we had a pretty hard year last year. We had a lot of loss. We lost several family members and friends who passed away, and it was a really hard year for us. So we came to the end of it when we got to the fall and the holiday season, and we were just really weary. And so we spent some much needed time resting as a family, and it was a huge blessing. So today I wanted to start off this new season and just talk a little bit about intention, and hopefully give you some practical tips that I use with clients and myself to help you be intentional about the year ahead so that you can take inventory of your time and your energy and your perspective as we start this new season. I'm not sure about you, but as we grow older, or as I get older, the holiday season seemed to be a little bit harder for me every year. I found myself crying most days on Christmas morning, and it's just really due to being overwhelmed and partly heartbroken because as I get older and I say goodbye to those that I love, then it's hard because I can't get them back, you know? But it also causes me to stop and reflect and think about how intentional I want to be in the year ahead. And so I'm very thankful for this last season, for the last couple of weeks of rest, because it allowed me to do just that and really consider, what do I want out of 2024? I'm not a big resolution person. Maybe you are, I don't know, but I have goals and dreams just like everybody else, right? But I don't spend a lot of time really writing them all down and getting very specific on a list or something. You know, I need to accomplish these 10 things this year in order for me to be successful. But I am very intentional about how I spend my time. And I have worked in different processes and different things over the years about goal setting and being intentional and how to set up the new year with success. But this is the thing that I found that really offers me the greatest sense of peace and focus. And so I want to share that with you. So this is what I'm bringing into 2024. And 2024, I really just want to have my year be this steady heartbeat and rhythm where I can find God's promises in mundane moments, right? I don't want big peaks and valleys. I don't want high winds or really low lows. I just want a steady rhythm, like a heartbeat, so I can see His love and His grace, and I can see how those things and his promises sustain me. That's really what I want. I want to sit on my porch and drink coffee a lot with friends and family and just enjoy the sunshine. And I want to have a renewed sense of hope about what vision and purpose and meaning and goals are. And I just want to really live this year with intention. So for me, when I sat and I thought about it, when my business coach asked me, right, because I don't do this in a vacuum, right? I do have a coach and she prompts me to ask hard questions. She said, Danita, when you look back on this year and when you get to the end of it, right, what do you want to have done? What do you want to have seen, or what perspective do you want to have gained? For me, I thought about it and I said, I want to be able to look back on my time this year and see how I've weaved in moments that really mattered, where I was present for those who mattered to me, where I was present for those that I want to love well, for those who are important to me. And I want to be able to see the Father's heart in all things. In 2022, I launched this podcast, right? And the whole goal when we started the podcast was I just wanted to show up for the podcast. That was it. Show up. That's how I have it written on my Post-it. Just says show up for the podcast. And I didn't really care about numbers, statistics, or sponsors, or ad budgets, or any of those things, right? Those will come. But for me, it was important for me to show up. And that meant twice a month, I was going to release an episode, put it out in the airways so that you guys, could share. Making a podcast was about being present in the moments and making connections with people who were going to come on the show. When I was writing something for you that I wanted to share, something from my heart, is just being intentional and showing up for those moments. And so that's the message and the theme that I want to continue. As I spent some time in the Christmas season and the holiday really thinking about that, and what does that look like for me in this season today, where I am in time and space, I really felt this great sense of stewardship and the need for me to be a good steward. So for me, stewardship falls into three bins. It falls into money, of course, right? Resources, but it also falls into the hearts of others. And we'll talk a little bit more about that and I'll unwrap it. And then the third one is it falls into me being a good steward of myself, of my own heart. And we'll talk about that some more. And at the end of this episode, this is what I hope. I hope that I'll give you some tools and a perspective for you to consider, what does stewardship look like for you? Okay. So think about that as we go through. We all have different versions of what success looks like. We all have different versions of what stewardship looks like. That's okay. But I want you to consider that as we go forward. I'm going to give you mine, but I want you to sit and think about, what does stewardship actually mean to me, right? And am I doing that with intention? And is there something else that I could do different? So what does living a life of intention look like? And then how can you lay some of those out as you continue to navigate through your season of life, right? So for me, stewardship really falls down first to money and resources. It's pretty basic. It's not complicated. I want to be a good steward of the money and the resources that God has entrusted me with. Now, that has looked different in every season of my life, right? But it's the basic resources that God has given to me. And I ask very practical questions like, do I need an extra sweater? Do I need to buy more books on Amazon? The answer is always yes. Of course I do. Should I discontinue my Stitch Fix account? Probably yes, again, for the third time this year. I'm probably fine with clothes in my closet, considering the fact that I only leave the house twice a week, right? I'm pretty much a remote worker all the time. But the resources and the money that God has provided to me is very important for me to be a good steward of. And that's something that's very important. And I'm striving to do that well. So I spent much of the fall going through closets and drawers and dressers and donating and organizing and all the things, which brought me a great sense of peace. And I want to enter this new season making sure that there's margin in my life and in my resources. One, to bring me a sense of peace, to bring me a sense of clarity, right? I don't need a lot of clutter, figuratively or literally, but also so that I'm able to do the things when God calls me to do them. And that's really important to me. And I think that's what God calls all of us to do. So that's stewardship number one. Pretty basic, right? Resources. The second one that has been laid on my heart that I'm really praying into and really trying to figure out, what does this actually look like, is to be a good steward of the hearts that God has entrusted into my safekeeping, right? You don't have to be a parent or a spouse to be responsible for somebody else's heart. If you're a CEO or a pastor or nonprofit leader, or if you're a friend, or if you live in a community, or if you are on a team of some point anywhere, you are going to bump up against somebody's heart at some point in your life. It is impossible to think that you won't. We're not islands, right? So we have a responsibility to steward those hearts well. And the stewardship varies based on our season of life, based on 1,000 different factors. So for me, I'm a mom and I'm a spouse and I'm a daughter and I have siblings and I have an extended family with my husband's family. And in those moments when they need something, I have a mother-in-law. We have to be a good steward of their hearts. And that means if they call at 3:00 in the morning and they need something, we're going to make sure that we can be there to provide, right? If that's something that we can do. I'm a ministry leader and we run a crisis pregnancy outreach center, right? And those hearts matter. And it's not just the clients who come in every day and their children and their family members and their spouses and the people that are in their lives that are trying to support them, their support structure, but it's the donors and it's the board of directors and it's the volunteers and it's our new staff members that we just hired and their families and the hearts that they have, right? And their life, their real life that happens while we're doing ministry every day. So it's the community leaders that we're connected to. It's the partnerships that we have with our local agencies, right? All of those hearts that are connected to us in the community and the outreach center, they all matter. And those hearts require a lot of time and attention. And then I have my clients. My clients' hearts matter because they're striving to lead their companies or their nonprofits or churches, and they're trying to navigate through these very specific or complicated leadership and organizational challenges. They're trying to build defense pipelines. They're trying to launch their technology into the defense sector. Like they're doing a lot of hard things. And they're working through all of this at the same time. They're trying to balance the people on their team and the resources that they've been giving. And their hearts matter too, right? So it was impressed upon me this year, at the end of last year, but taking into this year that I really needed to be intentional and a good steward of those hearts. And our souls are not infinite. We can't hold unlimited hearts. We just can't. It's like there's not an unlimited time bucket, right? You only have so much time. You only have so much money. You can make more money, can't make more time. And so the same thing is true with hearts. There's only so many hearts that you're going to be able to hold and do that well. So how do I do that? For me, I set aside a time to pray and discern how am I supposed to love them well. And it looks like me setting aside time in my day or my week to pray about their hearts and to seek the wisdom that I need to see what they need or how I can help them, or if I'm not supposed to be the one to help them, right? Sometimes you're not always the one who's supposed to be there to help them. And that's a discernment and a wisdom as well. And the people who get closer to my center, those ones who are really close to me, they get access to me whenever they need it. And that means I have to make margin and I need to hold the space for them. Last year, I started writing a book. I don't know if you know that. I'm finished with the rough draft or the initial draft. It's been sent off to the editors and we're still working through this process. As they say, a book is never finished. But it's really been this journey that I've been on for the last couple of years where we ask this question, what is my purpose? And we ask it all the time in the church and outside the church and in the world. Probably 100 times in your life, you're asking in different seasons, what is the purpose? What is my purpose? What is the purpose in this pain? What is the purpose in this situation or this thing that I'm standing in front of today, trying to hold on to and make sense of it? It's really hard, but it's a very common question that we all ask, right? And there's nothing wrong with asking that question. But for me, I started to write the book because it was this discovery journey for me to figure out, why do we ask it? And as Christians, what does the scripture say? Because sometimes we think that there's this hidden treasure that God has placed inside each one of us that's uniquely designed like a gift, and it's wrapped and hidden, and we're going to strive to find it, right? We're going to look for it our entire life and try to find this hidden purpose. But is that really what the scripture says? Is that really what God has called us to? Or is that maybe a version that man has created or interpreted for himself, right? So that's a little teaser about the book. The book will be coming out later this year. But the premise behind the book, and if I were to give you the spoiler alert, if you turn to the last page, here's the answer, is that we already have a purpose for us. We're Christians, those of us who are Christians. We have a purpose in Christ, and it's already been defined. And God has already told us to love me and love the world. And we can do that in a billion different ways, which is super complicated and messy, and it's really, really hard. And that's okay. But God has offered us something instead of chasing after purpose. He's given us his promises. And his promises are eternal. And there are so many, endless promises, depending upon who you ask. And they're far more than we could ever imagine. And so on this journey that I've been on for the last 2 years, writing this book and researching and praying and crying and all the things, I have spent a lot of time trying to figure out and see the promises of God. And in this last season of our life, especially the fall, as I found myself sitting at this desk on Saturdays trying to make sense of this thing called life and purpose, over and over and over again, I was reminded of the promises of God. And in that season, I found this verse, which goes back to stewardship and why I'm bringing stewardship into 2024 and why I'm talking with you about it today. But in Proverbs 3:18, it says that she is the tree of life to those who lay hold of her. Those who hold her fast are called blessed. And so I've been sitting in this verse for the last couple of weeks as I'm getting ready to launch a new podcast season and going back to work in the ministry and launching all the new programs we're going to be doing and all the things that we're super excited about this year. But it was really imparted upon me that there are a lot of people in my life, and probably in your life too, who lay hold of you. They hold you fast. Either they're children who are little, maybe for you, or they're big like mine. But they're holding on to us figuratively, literally, financially, spiritually, emotionally, intellectually. They're holding on to us, and they need us to be strong, and they need us to be like the tree of life. And when I thought about that, and I thought, what does stewardship mean to me in this season of my life right now? It was very clear to me that God has entrusted me with many hearts, and I don't take that lightly, right? Just like leadership. That's why we have this podcast, because you are entrusted with the care and safekeeping of others. And that is the most important thing. And so I offer that to you if you are in this season of your life or you're entering into 2024 and you're getting ready to plan and you're doing all your goal setting and doing all that stuff. Again, nothing's wrong with that. But I would ask you if you could take a minute and consider, what does stewardship look like for you? And are you making intentional time, prayer, margin, whatever that looks like, so that you can make space for you to be able to love those hearts well? Sometimes we get overwhelmed at the end of the long day, which happens to me more often than not. And then I start to see that, I get frustrated. I'm overwhelmed. I think maybe I should quit my job. I need to run away from home and buy an island. I could never buy an island, but just live on one. But then I realize it's just because all of the hearts that I'm entrusted with need a lot of things. And so I need to stop, take a moment, change my perspective, and see that the reason why I'm overwhelmed is because I have a lot of heart things that need to be done, right? There are a lot of hearts that are holding on to me and they need stuff. So I've learned that if I stop and I take inventory of all those hearts first, and then when I decide to make them a priority, then I will make space for them, right? It's like we go back to our money thing for a minute. If I prioritize and say that there are only 3 sweaters that I'm going to have, and I'm going to make space for them in my closet, and I'm not going to worry about all the other ones, I'm going to give them away, then I have space for the 3 sweaters, right? And I'm intentional. And that's what stewardship means to me. It could be time or money that you need to offer. It could be emotional capital or spiritual or intellectual margin. I don't know. It depends. And it's not linear, right? So the things that my husband need or my children need are different than the things that the clients at the center need, right? My bosses or my clients need something different than my mother. But that doesn't mean that one is greater than the other. If you were to put yourself on a piece of paper and draw a circle or draw a tree, and you were to put yourself in the center, and then you were to make little branches coming out from all of the center of all the places or people's hearts that you touched, how big would that be? It would be massive, I think, because we are connected, or we touch so many people every day. I'm sure that you would find a lot of lines. Mine has a lot of lines. And so as you get ready to launch into this next year, and you're super hyper focused on vision and purpose and getting all wrapped up in strategic planning and margins and profits and strategic goals, right? Which I get it. We all do that. That's what I do as a coach and a consultant. I help companies build organizational plans and strategies, SWOT analysis. There's value there. But I would offer you to take a step back and stop and consider the hearts that you've been entrusted with. Because in my opinion, in this season of my life, especially, the hearts are more important than anything else. A long time ago, I heard a lesson from a pastor that I've carried through my whole leadership journey. And he made it, he was telling parents this about their children, but he said, don't hurt their hearts. And I wrote it down, and I've probably said it 100 times, especially when I'm at work and I get frustrated. But that's basically my model for my leadership journey. Don't hurt their hearts. And so I offer that to you if you're getting ready today to launch into 2024, write a book, launch a podcast, whatever it is, start a business, whatever that looks like for you in your leadership journey. I would challenge you to take a step back, consider the hearts that you've been entrusted with, and ask, how can you steward them well? Okay? Okay. And the second thing about that is that there is no such thing as like work-life balance, meaning not everything gets equal parts. Everything is not reciprocal bends, right? So you don't have a wife Ben and a mom Ben and a job Ben and a ministry Ben and a friend Ben and a hobby Ben and a fitness Ben, and they're all equal parts. Life's not linear. It doesn't work like that. You don't have 10 cups on your desk and you're just filling each one of them with equal parts. A lot of people ask, well, how do you get work-life balance? Work-life balance is just making sure that you stay fluid and agile enough to be able to adapt and create margin, time, money, emotion, health, all those things to be able to flex and move when, those things are needed. Sometimes you may be at, a season of your life where your family needs a lot from you. That's how we were last year. Our family needed a lot, right? So there was a lot that we needed to be able to give to our family. And so there may be times when you're sitting at work and your boss comes in and there's a deadline and work needs something really big, or the data center's crashing, or you have to go on a deployment that wasn't planned, right? Life's not linear. When we sit down and think of this perspective of what we think our life is going to look like, or vision or purpose, then we need to make sure that we are being intentional to create margin so that we can allow for that agility and flexibility that comes. Because I promise, as a recovering workaholic person, multitasking crazy lady, if you do that, you will find a much greater sense of peace. And whenever the latest storm comes busting through your door, then you'll have the resources that you need to be able to handle it. Okay? All right. And so the last part that we're going to talk about, steward your resources. What does that look like for you? Steward the hearts that you have been entrusted with. What does that look like for you? And then the third one is, how do you steward your heart, your own personal self? It's the beginning of the year and we talk about goals and vision and all the things. And we're going to lose weight. We're going to start a business. We're going to do all the things. Nothing wrong with that. I think there's nothing wrong. But I would offer you to take a step back and think about, what does it look like for you to steward your heart well? We're working with a young lady who is just moving out into the world, and she started college this week for the first time. So she's doing something really hard and trying to get back to school and go to college and, all the hard things. And we were having a conversation last week, and I was sharing with her that you're the only person who's going to look after your own heart. Now, that doesn't mean that your spouse or your parents or your kids or your family or your boss or your team members don't care about you. They do care about you, right? But you are the one who is responsible for your own heart. You have to steward yourself well. Your heart has to matter to you because you're the only one listening to it, feeling its heartbeat, being there with it, happy, sad, good, bad, right? Sometimes I think we just shove our heart down inside somewhere. We wrap it up, like hide it in the back of the closet. And then we wake up one day and we wonder who we are and where we're going. And then you're like, do I even like this? Do I even like this job? Or do I even like working with these things or these people or whatever? It's just something, you do it for so long, you forget who you are. And you can be a good steward of your resources and your money and the hearts that are entrusted to you. But it is super important that you are a steward of your heart as well. And that looks different in every season of your life. My grandma lived to be 93. And there was a season of her life where she was struggling to find her purpose. And we used to talk all the time on the telephone. And I remember one evening I was talking with her and we were having issues in North Carolina and she's in Oklahoma. So she couldn't come, right? She couldn't come and help us. She couldn't help me with the kids or take me to the doctor or do the things I needed to do. And so she was struggling to kind of feel like how she could help. What was her purpose? And eventually she came to the conclusion, she says, I can pray for you. And I said, well, of course you can. Right? You can, prayers never expire. And so she committed to pray. And she said, that's what I will do. I will pray for you. And that was her way of being a good steward of the hearts that she had been entrusted to, right? Even if we weren't right next door, she couldn't reach out and touch us. And so when we consider this part about those who will hold fast and those who call you blessed, you have to think about that, right? Because your heart matters and you're the only one who can take care of it. So just remember, friend, that your heart does matter, okay? Other than someone who's gone through heart transplant, you only get one, right? In 2019, my dad passed away. I think most of you may know that by now, listening to the podcast, or you were with me on that journey. And he had had heart failure and different things for years. So a few months after he passed away, I started having these chest pains at random intervals. I'd get on the treadmill after work or start jogging and I'd have this chest pain. So I'd stop running and I'd walk for a while and I'd think, man, what is that? And it just kept happening. After a few weeks, it just, kept happening. So I finally decided to make an appointment to go to the doctor. I went and saw my PCM and he said, well, I think everything's fine, but just to be safe, we'll refer to cardiology. You obviously have a family history, so let's not be too cautious. So I went in, I saw the cardiologist. I'm sitting there, I'm talking to his nurse. I'm filling out all the paperwork. I'm telling her what's going on. And she's pretty optimistic too. She's like, well, you're young, you're healthy. I think, it's probably, we'll check and see, but hopefully things are okay. And in walks this doctor. And he looks just like Steve Martin. Same hair, same glasses. It's like he walked just right out of the Dirty Rotten Scoundrels movie. And he was just like, hey, how's it going? He was my most favorite doctor. Dr. D, we'll call him Dr. D. But he comes busting through the door with a big smile on his face, and he was super excited to be there. And so I'm talking to him about my story and the things that are going on, and he gets a little bit more concerned. He's writing things down, and eventually he says, all right, we're going to send you over to the ER. He hands me 4 baby aspirin, tells me to take them, tells me to lay down, and says he's going to get some tests run and wants to see what's going on. And at that moment, I was like, oh man, what's going on, right? It was super scary. And as he got ready to walk out of the hospital room to go order the test at the ER, I turned around to him and I said, well, you only get one heart, right? He kind of chuckled and he said, yes. Well, some people get 2, but let's just take care of the first one that you have right now, okay? And I said, okay, that sounds good. And so you only get one heart, friend. And it is the most important thing. So if you're launching something in 2024, it could be a get well plan. It could be financial improvements. It could be a budget. It could be whatever it is. Building businesses, losing weight, saving money, taking the trip to Greece or Scotland, whatever you want to do, or just maybe you're just trying to live your family well, or you're trying to survive this next season of treatments or therapy or whatever that looks like for you. Maybe you're praying for your family because that's all you can do today. That's okay too. I just pray that you love yourself well. I want you to make space to be intentional and to be strong. And I hope that in the midst of that journey, you find a way to see the Father's heart, because I truly believe that it is the most important thing. And before I go today, I just want to offer you some words of encouragement to let you know that you're not alone, okay? And that you do matter. So keep showing up every day, even when it hurts. And I'll talk to you soon. I hope you have an amazing day. I'll see you later. Bye. Hey, friends. Well, thanks for joining me on the first episode of Season 2 of the Entrusted to Lead podcast. I am super excited on what we're going to be doing in 2024. We're going to jump into some tools and tips next week that I use to be more productive. I know it's productivity, blah. It's not a fun word, but I promise if you listen to the podcast, I am almost 100% sure that you will leave with something that will help you get time back in your schedule, organize your thoughts, or launch that new idea. Okay, so stay tuned for the next episode. And then we'll be back with some amazing interviews with some authors and veterans and leaders who are making waves in their spaces. We'll start those in March, so look forward to that. And again, if you want to be on the podcast, pop over to danitacummins.com/podcast, click on the link, fill out the form, and always subscribe to the Entrusted to Lead newsletter so you can get those updates in your email and special little tidbits and blogs and things that I write from time to time. And oh, by the way, I'll be sharing chapters and things about the book through that venue too. So make sure you sign up for that if you want to follow the adventures of the book launch this year. And if you wouldn't mind, it's always appreciated if you could pop over to Spotify or Apple or iHeartRadio and leave a review for the podcast. It's very much appreciated. So I I hope you have an amazing day. I'll see you later. Bye.